Happy full moon, Julie.
Oh boy, is it ever. Hello, my
Woo!
friend. Yeah, September. September always feels hopeful. There's something about knowing pumpkin lattes are available.
Or as we say in my house, is it too early to put up the Halloween tree?
There you go. There you go. Exactly. Yeah. I'm like itching to wear a sweater.
Yep. Yep.
All that. Hmm.
Well, we got a little taste of it here in Austin today with cooler temperatures and some rain. It feels like fall. Now, it'll get to 100 degrees again, but this feels good.
Arizona is like that. I can remember down in the Phoenix area with little kids getting them ready for Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, I mean, we never dealt with like snow or anything that cold, but sometimes, you're trying to do little face painting stuff on their little faces and they're sweating so bad. And you're wondering, I'm not sure how long this is going to last, but we're going with it.
Well, I am curious to see what poet found you this week.
Well, I had sort of a sweet little journey on this one. I always seem to get exactly what I need. But I earlier in the week saw a really cool quote by a poet named Audra Lourde, and it actually was a photo of her, and on a chalkboard behind her, it said, "Women are powerful and dangerous." And it sort of made me like, well, there's somebody I need to like, I need to know more about. And so I kind of went on the hunt and found some beautiful works by her. But it also led to a discussion of Langston Hughes.
Ah,
And Langston Hughes is a very kind of well known, I guess, Renaissance poet from the 1920s,
mhm.
Black poet, who was a prolific storyteller, playwright, poet. And he mentioned a woman named Lucille Clinton or Clifton. And so I I found a video of her reading one of her poems, and all of a sudden I got sort of like that goose flesh, like,
Mm.
oh no, it's Lucille I need to it's Lucille I need to explore a little bit more of. I will get back to Audre Lorde. Don't want to diss Audre Lorde, but I didn't have that reaction that I had.
Audra was just holding the door open.
Exactly. I think Audra was like, come on in, the water's safe. You need to meet Lucille. Exactly what it felt like.
So
And
Lucille Clifton.
yes, and so we can also thank Langston Hughes for being part of that introduction. And so the poem that I heard Lucille reading is a really short one, but I want to read it for you before we get to the real poem that I can't wait to share with
Okay.
you. Because this is the goosebump. I want to know more about her poem. And it is entitled, Won't You Celebrate with Me? Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into a kind of life? I had no model, born in Babylon, both non white and woman. What did I see to be except myself? I made it up. Here on this bridge between starshine and clay, my one hand holding tight, my other hand, come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed.
Mm. Oh. Yeah.
Here, Lucille reading this, and she was probably well into her 60s when I saw her read this, recite this out loud. She was this powerful force
Hmm.
of nature, and I just adored her. So it took me on a journey. And so let me tell you a little bit about Lucille Clifton. She hails from western upstate kind of New York
Okay.
area. That's where she was born. I want to say like around the Buffalo area. And she was born in 1936. And she studied at Howard University. She was actually discovered by Langston Hughes, and her work was not being published in mainstream publications, and he thought incredibly highly of her. So he started including her work in publications that he was being included in, and books that he was responsible for the publishing of.
So he
And
was
so
holding the door for her.
he was holding the door for her, exactly.
Okay.
Um, and she is a prolific, widely respected Black female poet within kind of her community, and has worked at the university level of being a professor of humanities at St. Mary's College. She has won an amazing number of poetry like workshop recognition. She's received a lot of recognition, and with that, there's always dollars tied to it. But also, she has been the chancellor of the Academy of American Poets for 11 years. And she served as the state of Maryland's poet laureate for like 11 years
Okay.
and won the prize of like $100,000 back in the early 90s. So she is someone who really has worked and worked this craft of poetry and prose for a number of years, and then it would appear became a phenom, but it was a slow, steady build of contributing to this craft of poetry. um, she died in 2010 at the age of 74,
Hmm.
and she has a book called Good Times, which was published in 1969, that was sort of in 1969 the runaway New York Times #1 best-selling book. So she's had her share of kudos for the work that was about her life. And so the poem that I am going to share with you today feels incredibly bold and bodacious, and
Hmm.
you know reminds me of that Audra Lourde quote about being a dangerous woman. And I
Okay.
thought, I think this poem needs to be shared. And the poem is called Brothers. And so to give you a little context about this poem, is written in almost 8 stanzas. And well, it is written in 8 stanzas. And it ends up that this poem is written as a conversation between Lucifer and God.
Hmm.
But it's written as if these are old buddies remembering an earlier time. And I thought, well, that's a pretty bold act. And then I looked up, a little bit more about Lucifer, because, many of us would know that, if you've had a Christian upbringing, for example, that Lucifer is considered the fallen angel that eventually we know as the devil.
Right.
And so, it's like I remembered that pretty much from, my upbringing in Catholic school. But I wanted to know a little bit more. And one of the first things I read was that Lucifer, from the Latin, means morning star. And I thought, well, that's really interesting. So the adjective, following that was light bringer. And I was sort of like, well, that's interesting. Sort of like, okay, so this is a little bit of a twist on Lucifer. And Clifton said about this, that this poem is a profound meditation on spirituality and doubt.
Oh.
And so that pulled me in even more. Like, I want to know more about this brothers, this daring to orchestrate a conversation between God and Lucifer. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was the poem I'm going to read for you today. So this is probably one of the longest poems we have shared. I'm going to have to put my glasses on for this. I think I need a drink of water for this. But yeah, sit back and enjoy this.
Okay.
I can't wait to discuss it afterwards. So we begin with the invitation. Come coil with me here in creation's bed, among the twigs and ribbons of the past. I have grown old remembering the garden, the hum of the great cats, moving into language, the sweet fume of the man's rib as it rose up and began to walk. It was all glory then, the winged creatures leaping like angels, the oceans claiming their own. Let us rest here a time like two old brothers who watched it happen and wondered what it meant.
Mm.
Section 2, How Great Thou Art. Listen, you are beyond even your own understanding. That rib and rain and clay in all its pride, its unsteady dominion, is not what you believed you were. But it is what you are. In your own image as some lexicographer, suppose the face, both he and she, the odd ambition, the desire to reach beyond the stars, is you, all you, all you, the loneliness, the perfect imperfection.
Mm.
Section 3, As for myself, less snake than angel, less angel than man, how come I to this serpent's understanding? Watching creation from a hood of leaves, I have foreseen the evening of the world, the breast of yourself, separated out and made to bear. As sure as her returning, I too am blessed with the one gift you cherish, to feel the living move in me and to be unafraid. Section 4, In my own defense. What could I choose but to slide along behind them, they whose only sin was being their father's children,
Mm.
as they stood with their backs to the garden, a new and terrible luster burning their eyes. Only you could have called their ineffable names. Only in their fever could they have failed to hear. Section 5, The road led from delight. Into delight, into the sharp edge of seasons, into the sweet puff of bread baking, the warm veil of sheet and sweat after love, the tinny newborn cry of calf and cormorant and humankind and pain, of course. Always there was some bleeding, but forbid me not my meditation on the outer world before the rest of it, before the bruising of his heel, my head, and so forth, is God. Tell me, tell us why, in the confusion of a mountain of babies stacked like cordwood, of limbs walking away from each other, of tongues bitten through by the language of assault, tell me, tell us why. You neither raised your hand nor turned away. Tell us why you watched the excommunication of that world and you said nothing. Section 7. Still there is mercy, there is grace. How otherwise could I have come to this, marble spinning in space, propelled by the great thumb of the universe? How otherwise could the two roads of this tongue converge into a single certitude? How otherwise could I, a sleek old traveler, curl one day, safe and still beside you, at your feet perhaps? But, amen, yours. In section 8, ... is God. So, having no need to speak, you sent your tongue splintered into angels. Even I, with my little piece of it, have said too much. To ask you to explain is to deny you before the word you were. You kiss my brother mouth, the rest is silence.
The rest is silent.
So I love the fact that Lucifer is doing all the talking, first of all, in this whole thing. And, it sort of portrays like these stubborn old brothers going back and talking about something.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, God can't answer these questions that he's being posed. And of course, Lucifer knows he can't answer these questions that are being posed. So I sort of love that, tension of but they're still wanting the answer, wanting to know the why. And so one of the things that I loved that Lucille Clifton says about this, like this character, this Lucifer, is not Satan or the devil precisely, but rather in her writing this, bringing the light bringer, bringing light into these questions, asking the question that, is, forbidding, asking the question that can't be answered and just leaving it there. That sort of, I love that. And she also, in an interview I read, talked about the character of Lucifer is something she finds in herself, in Lucille. And that petty part, that selfish part, the frightened part. And she calls this poem the story of an individual's journey in search of integration, and something that has to be meditated on, and meditated on regularly, because that journey in search of integration is what we are dealing with.
Well, I was
on big
curious.
levels. On
I was curious about her choice to write the poem from Lucifer's perspective. And so, to hear, oh, this is a voice that she finds within herself.
Mhm.
I was reading it and I was hearing, two brothers. And I had just, I started telling myself a story about these two brothers where, one was treated lovely and one was treated not as lovely, and trying to understand what's the difference between us. Um, as a child, might try to understand what's the difference between us instead of the parent. But also, there seemed to be a full perspective. You can't just have one perspective, it's the full range. And we carry that full range within ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Mhm. Yeah. So it's like I just wanted to know more about this sort of bold breaker of taboo, you know, the fact that this is a woman of color who came up through a time where everything was gamed against her because she was a black woman. So she had both. She had both things working against her. And she just used the power of her mind and her imagination to blaze a trail and ask big, brash questions and put things. Yeah.
Do you have the year that she wrote this poem?
I don't, but I wondered if it wasn't around 1991.
Okay.
And I wrote that with a question mark because I wanted to know that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes, it.
I don't know if I told you, she died in 2010. She was 74. And an interesting thing about her, so this is also a woman, 74 years old, who was like, they said somebody described her as a cat with 9 lives because she had so many health issues and
Oh,
like big health issues. And she just, from the time she was a fairly young woman, just kept coming back, fighting stronger, and would get really, really ill, have to get a kidney replaced, like some pretty gnarly things, and just kept pushing, fighting on. And so the fact that she lived to 74, when you realize how many health crises she dealt with through her life, that's pretty powerful. And that she
she
continued to write and teach and
she had a lot to say. She had a lot to teach us. Um,
yeah,
and so I suspect she probably wasn't finished when she did move on, but the sense of determination that she couldn't move on until she um, was able to get out everything that was stirring inside of her, and to leave us with these words that we can meditate on um, long past, after her passing. But yeah, this meditation.
yeah. So Audra Lourde had it right. Women are powerful and dangerous.
And dangerous. Oh,
And the danger is speaking your truth. Isn't that fascinating? Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. The danger is asking the question that people may not be prepared to want to answer, or the question that has no answer, or
And
no good answer, easy answer.
the power of asking that
Yeah.
question and not
Mhm.
um, not knowing the answer, not being the one to have the answer, but that power of releasing the question and allowing people to let it stir in them, and that they begin to ask that question of themselves.
Right. Because this is the thing I love about poetry is it gives you a place to go and play with that idea and imagine, well, what if this? And you just let yourself take that ride and see where it leads you. And not all poems are going to lead you to something excellent, but you never know unless you just play and let yourself go there and see what comes through you. So
The letting go.
poetry now, yeah, is, I feel like I'm hearing more and more people wanting to share poetry. People approach me all the time. I don't know if this is happening with you. Would they say, "Hey, do you know?" And they'll mention a poet's name, and or send me the poem, because they know you and I are doing this, and they're also, now getting into the people they like to, check up on and see what they're doing. And I just, yeah,
And
it's
having people send me, your poem made me think of this poem. And so
Mhm.
I'm having people send me their poems, and I really love that.
Me too. So much fun because it's always more fun to share this ride with like-minded travelers.
Hmm. Absolutely. Share the ride, and the openness. It's funny you say share the ride, because I'm thinking of the open road of poetry.
Mm-hmm.
And we might all read the same poem, but have our own individual experience of that poem. And so it's when we come together and share those experiences that the poems come alive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, what a great journey. And my gratitude to Audra Lourde and Langston Hughes for opening the doors for Lucille Clifton. Love.
Yeah. I love how that worked. That was sweet.
Thank you for being open to those
Mhm.
doors, Julie, and being willing to step through, not knowing where it was going to lead you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Okay, so we'll meet up again next time.
Okay.
We'll see who's waiting
Yeah.
for
Yeah, it'll be fun. Stay
us.
cool. Drink
Thank
something, Tiffany.
you. Okay,
All
bye.
right, friend.